We're good to go.
Cool.
All right, everybody. Welcome to our little Monday evening chat. Sandeep, thanks for coming and joining our little chat with us. Just tell the viewers who you are, where you're based, and what you're up to.
Yeah, my name's Sandeep. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt competitor and kids coach. Based in St Albans, but I train kind of all over the place. My head academy is in RJ Box in Aylesbury. I also train with guys in London at Gym Box, Boreham Woodby. Shout out Boreham Woodby, JJ, where we teach the kids class as well. Great bunch of kids there, and yeah, I'll go anywhere where I can get a role. But I have a main academy and a head coach.
So, man. So, what's your sort of background? What I know you've competed. Tell them what you are. Tell them what you've done.
Yeah, well, my dad was big into getting me into martial arts, so I've been doing some sort of martial arts my whole life. It started with Chinese kung fu, then onto kickboxing. Then when I moved to London in '99, that's when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then moved to what was the original London Shoot Fighters camp for MMA. So the early days of MMA, before Conor McGregor was making hundreds of millions.
Give him an opportunity, mate.
One of my early fights was in the back of a pub in a broken boxing ring, and I got paid exactly nothing for it. So yeah, it wasn't all glitz and glamour back then. Yeah, and then once I got married, my missus hated me doing the MMA, so came back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in a big way, and yeah, been doing it, in love with it ever since. It's a rabbit hole that if you start, you cannot ever get out of. You just go further and further down it.
So just tell us a little bit.
Sorry, Chris. Is this your full-time job? Is this?
No, it's not, mate.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm Mr. London. I work in London. I'm an IT project manager.
Oh wow.
So, but around that, I still manage to find my average week's jiu-jitsu is a minimum of 5 sessions teaching and training. So right. It's been a big part of my life.
Yeah, massive. Yeah.
A long time. Yeah.
What's the difference between jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu? I did ask you this when we had a chat before, but
without going into too much history, jiu-jitsu and Brazilian jiu-jitsu are essentially the same thing. It's just the way that they were practiced in different countries. So the Japanese exported jiu-jitsu, which is the full set of techniques. When they came to the Western world, we kind of nerfed it a little bit, made it soft. Oh, that's too dangerous. Let's not practice like that. People are going to get hurt. Oh, let's add in a load of colored belts because people need to see progression and this, that, and the other. But the guy that took it to Brazil found a family, the Gracie family, that pretty much took him in. And they decided that they could use this for challenge matches to prove that they were the toughest. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu evolved along lines of what works, what can I do to someone in sparring? And it was about challenge matches, constant fighting. So all of the different ways in which the Western world softened Jiu-Jitsu. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very much a pure fighting art. You will spend, at your average Jiu-Jitsu class, even as a beginner, you will spend half of it sparring and tapping with people going full on trying to choke you or break your limbs. But yeah, I mean, that's the real difference. Essentially the same thing. Judo's the same thing. That's come out of Jiu-Jitsu as well. If you think of Jiu-Jitsu as like the ultimate truth, and from that came Judo, came Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, came what I call Western Jiu-Jitsu, where, you know, people have changed rule sets and added it to where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is it's a pure fighting form. Pretty much the only thing you can't do is strike.
So
it's sport Jiu-Jitsu.
Is Gracie the name that, you know?
So that's a tricky one. I mean, the Gracie family are certainly the most influential family in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but they're not the only ones. When they were teaching it, they were very much reserved their teachings, having got famous for all these bare knuckle challenge matches and winning them all. They reserved their teachings for very rich people, and there were other extended members of that family that took it out to the masses a little bit more, and now it's a global thing. But all of the big families that you see, the Machados, they're all related. They're all cousins or second cousins or whatever.
Is there a governing body for it?
Sorry?
Is there a governing, like Judo's got 2 main governing bodies? Is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu got?
There is one that's globally recognised. It's the IBJJF.
Yeah.
So they're the big tournament. They're recognised because they've been around the longest and they're the biggest tournaments to win. But they're not the only competitions out there. There's probably more non-IBJJF competitions than there is IBJJF. But for example, the IBJJF World Championship or the IBJJF European Championships, if you win that, it means something.
Yeah.
But then there's, Joe down the road who goes, I'll start a jiu-jitsu competition and I'll call it, we'll have it at Batchwood and we'll call it the Batchwood Europeans. You win that, no one cares. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. Okay.
You get good competitors all over the place. That some people avoid IBJJF because they cost a lot of money, and also there's kind of at the moment there's a bit of a divergence of the two rule sets where IBJJF bans some techniques which are highly dangerous. For example, a heel hook, which you can search online. But if someone heel hooks you and you don't tap in time, there goes every ligament in your knee. You're not walking again straight. So they ban that outright.
You can see why.
Whereas there's another sort of rule set that's kind of become really popular of sort of submission only, anything goes, heel hooks, leg locks, all the artistry around that. But you'd think that a leg lock is less dangerous than a choke, which is a common misconception. You can get put to sleep. I've been put to sleep a million times. To my mind, it doesn't really have that many adverse effects. Just feels like taking a nap. But a bad leg lock will put you on crutches forever.
Damage you for life. Yeah.
What sort of training you doing at the moment? So obviously you got your classes that you're going to. I know you're teaching the kids, but what sort of training do you do to help you with your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Well, that was a question I had to ask myself when lockdown started, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was all my fitness training. So with that gone, I kind of took a view that I want to do something that will improve my Jiu-Jitsu when I return. I don't have access to any heavy weights, so getting stronger is, whilst it's possible with bodyweight stuff, it doesn't really motivate me. So I threw myself into yoga. Because I figured flexibility and mobility was always an area I wanted to work on. And mate, it's hard. I always thought it was a bit crap, to be honest. People like old ladies with their rolled up yoga mats going to class at the gym. But mate, I threw myself into it and it was really difficult at first. But I've been doing it every day. So I do a minimum of 1 hour of yoga a day. And I guess it's like anything. In the beginning, you see those big gains, don't you? It's probably like everything. But mate, I'm doing stuff. If you'd asked me 6 weeks ago, can you get into that position? I'd have told you categorically no. It's been great. Also, I like the fact that it's difficult, and when I started, I really sucked at it. And I can see myself getting better.
Progress. It's funny because I've been doing the same thing, like doing some yoga, like stretching in the morning, just because I've got time. It's amazing, but the difference.
Just without the commute, I get an extra 3 hours a day back. That's
amazing, isn't it?
Do you think you both will throw it into your normal routine? Like, do you think you'll throw? Like, so, Sandy, do you think you'll take it back to your kids and when you teach your classes or do your other side of training? Would it be part of your regime?
1,000,000%. So we've even started adding in some of the yoga workouts with the kids as part of the jiu-jitsu stuff that we're doing with them. But that was all, it wasn't just that. I wanted my kids to see me exercising every day, because otherwise I'm a hypocrite and they're only going to learn by example. My kid, especially my younger one, she's a force of nature. She's got a really strong sense of what's fair and what's not fair. So if she seems something's not fair, her sister's got maybe more ice cream in her bowl. That's it, it's a fit. So if I'm trying to get her to exercise, but I'm not doing it myself, in their world, it's not fair. So it kind of started as they need to see me working hard, exercising every day, and the value that I place on it in order for it to go into their mind as well. Because I make them exercise every single day.
Through the kids' eyes, everything is black and white, mate. It's It's a simple thing. You exercise, you ain't exercise, I ain't doing it. It's great. Sandy, how old are your kids?
My youngest is 6.
Yeah.
My oldest is 9.
And what age did you get him into BJJ?
So my oldest one, I started her when she was 4.
Yeah.
She's quite a bit further down the line. She's competed quite a bit as well. And my youngest one, I started her last year because I don't care what anyone says, size matters, especially for children.
Yeah.
At the place where I was teaching my kids class, there wasn't any kids of an equivalent size, so there would just be no point her training. So she's got a little bit bigger. We've got some smaller kids in. I brought her in, so she's been doing it about a year. But it's funny because jiu-jitsu, there's an unlimited amount of moves, right? So you can really express your personality.
Yeah.
Like my older one is technically very good. Her technique is perfect, but those 50-50 scrambles, she won't go for them hard. She'd rather give up the position. And so if she wins because she was technically better. Whereas the little one is total savage, zero technique. To get her hands on you.
Killer instinct.
Yeah.
Does she take after her mother then?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
How important is it for you to encourage the girls to be involved in it?
It's more than important, and it's more than encouragement. For me, it's mandatory. For them to, I know this is a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but a lot of people say let your kids do activities that they enjoy, and when they stop enjoying them, let them find something else to do. Well, for me, jiu-jitsu in particular is 100% mandatory, because my kids will learn not to panic when someone puts their hands on them. They'll know exactly what to do. The values that they'll learn competing, they'll learn to lose and come back stronger. They'll learn to win from having put hard work in. So for me, to me, it's like maths and English. Like kids will say, my kids say all the time, I don't want to do my maths homework, it's boring. But with kids' activities, as parents, we often go, oh, they're not enjoying that anymore. Should we get them doing something else? Well, no. For me, they will continue to do jiu-jitsu for as long as I can continue to make them do jiu-jitsu. And it won't be a choice. But by that same token, like, I mean, the whole reason we started the jiu-jitsu YouTube channel was, we're not trying to create an online brand or a following or anything. All we're trying to do, all it was for me was to find a way to get them to train jiu-jitsu. Because if I put the mats out and said, let's train, they're like, no, I'd rather play iPad or whatever. But if I say, oh, do you want your own YouTube channel teaching kids how to play jiu-jitsu? They want to do it. And that's why I do it in the format that I do it as well. I've had loads of people, really well-intentioned comments saying, oh, well, if you just cut out the warm-ups and just did the techniques, or just did this, or added some more production value, or this, that, and the other, more people would follow it. And I don't care. I don't care if no one watches those videos, because to me, it's their
encouraging the girls to do something. Yeah.
So,
I think they're wicked. What's the channel called?
Homeschool BJJ.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. It's just encouraging, as you just said. The purpose of it is to get the girls involved, and your girls are two performers, aren't they?
Yeah, that's a good word for them, actually. I use other words for them sometimes, but yeah, and also the other, the kids at Bournemouth Jiu-Jitsu, we've got a really great bunch of kids there, and for a small club that's not a full-time academy, we've had some really good competition results. We've got a really committed group of kids, so it was important for me that they have a resource to be able to use that looks a bit like their jiu-jitsu class. Obviously it's not, I can't put out 40-minute long videos, but it's got to look and feel a little bit like what they usually do. Because you teach some kids as well. It's difficult not to get attached to them and to want to see them succeed and to be able to provide them with what they need. So yeah, that's a really big deal for me. But yeah, my kids.
What age group do you teach?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Our youngest are like 5 and 6.
Yeah.
And our older, bigger kids go up to about 12. At sort of 13, 14, we try and transition them into working with the adults as well, because they need the challenge, but also it's good for them to feel the difference in strength and size, and we can pick and choose which kids train with which adults as well, so they're not training with spazzy people. But yeah, about 12, 13 is where you start to try and transition them, and I think is the most difficult time, transitioning from training with kids to now training with grown men and women. that's a hard thing for a child to do, especially in a combat sport.
Joe, your boys are 6 and 8.
Maybe 6 in June. Yeah. One of them, love it. Twins, yeah.
Oh, mate, if I had a twin brother in lockdown, that would just be the dream. We'd be training every day.
And they don't stop fighting. All they do is wrestle.
Well, at least show them how to do it properly then.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think it'd be a good idea, definitely. What do you think, Sandeep? What do you think about the future of BJJ with this whole sort of pandemic stuff? You know, what's your sort of take on?
You know what? That's really interesting because I just had this conversation with a friend of mine as well earlier today, and there's 2 types of jiu-jitsu school, right? There's a full-time purpose-built jiu-jitsu academy where most of the time all that will happen is jiu-jitsu classes, like where I train in Aylesbury or Rogers HQ in London. And those types of places, when they're closed, are still incurring massive expense. So whereas at Boreham Wood Jiu-Jitsu, we rent a space at a gym in Potts Bar. And it's very much easier for Seymour, who runs that club there, to say, okay, guys, we have to close the club. I'll stop all the direct debits because there's no expense anymore either. So what concerns me is, you know, the lifeblood of any business is new people coming in, right? I think most jiu-jitsu clubs are probably 80% of their income is white belts and blue belts. Now, how many people are not going to start jiu-jitsu now because they're going to walk into a room, even once lockdown's over, they're going to walk into a room and there's probably 30 or 40 people rolling around together each other, sweating all over each other and, you know, choking each other out. My concern is that social distancing is going to put like a permanent thing in people's minds of how that works. So I think this is just my personal pitch, complete speculation. I think the big academies, the purpose-built full-time academy, I think they're going to struggle. I think we're going to see more sort of pop-up jiu-jitsu type places as well, where maybe you rent a space in a gym, you put in on 3 classes a week. So I think that's the way. That's my speculation of how it's going to go. I hope it doesn't go that way because those full-time academies, you know, the UK needs them. We need them. The UK.
I think I was talking to you before about, you know, being part of that jiu-jitsu sort of community is that you if you're, you know, you're in a choke or you're in a hold, you trust the people in your academy so well because you're trusting your life, you know, in a hold, that I think that if you've got a good group of people and they're, you know, one's sick for whatever reason, you would hope that they wouldn't be coming to training. Do you know?
There's standard jiu-jitsu etiquette, and that's one of the basic rules. If you're sick, don't come on the mats. You know, make sure you're barefoot on the mat, but always wearing shoes off the mat. You know, make sure you don't go barefoot to the toilet or whatever. Make sure your nails are cut short. There's a whole list of basic jiu-jitsu etiquette that you will know. You have, if you're at a good academy, that will get explained to you on day one. So that's always been a thing in our community. I mean, in jiu-jitsu, obviously, there's lots of communicable skin diseases as well, like ringworm, staph, things like that. So, you know, if you're infected with something, you won't go on the mats. Yeah. And that's just, so in a way, we already were kind of protecting ourselves, but for this kind of communicable disease, I don't know. I don't know what the future looks like on the other end. Guys like me, I'm going to train jiu-jitsu forever anyway. I'll find a way, you know, but I wonder what it's going to do to the broader community as a whole. Are some people, some of the people that maybe aren't ingrained in it as the way I am, are they going to find this as an excuse to leave? You know, are we going to struggle to attract new people to the community? Because otherwise it just withers and dies. It's just, I don't know. The flip side of that is MMA is going to continue to be popular. Therefore, people will always need jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's so popular at the moment. It's just like...
Yeah. And I quite like what the UFC did. They put on an event like in isolation about you know what? I bet they did some gigantic numbers from that because everybody watched it. Right? I know loads of people that aren't even fight fans that were like, I'm watching the UFC because there's nothing else on anyway.
Yeah. Do you think it's the basis of UFC? Do you think jiu-jitsu is sort of the foundation of a lot of the?
I think it was. Hoist Gracie going in and winning UFC 1, 2, and 3 and all the rest of it, and just murdering everyone with jiu-jitsu was the starting point. But MMA's moved on so much. I mean, that was 27 years ago, and to be an MMA fighter now, yeah, you'll be better at certain things than others, but you have to know everything. You have to know jiu-jitsu, you have to know wrestling, and you have to know how to strike. If any of those things are missing from your game in your entirety, you're in trouble. I mean, but there's jiu-jitsu guys like Damian Maia. If he gets his hands on you, he's going to submit you in an MMA fight. But similarly, there's guys like Conor McGregor. He never wants it to go to the ground because he'll get murdered there. Like Khabib. Well, Khabib will do that to anyone, but even yeah, Conor McGregor, I think, is a brown belt or a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, he's no joke on the ground. He knows what he's doing, but there's levels to everything. And I think modern MMA is not about. In the beginning, the UFC was marketed as a game, like, what's better, karate or judo or taekwondo, with the whole point of it being that jiu-jitsu is going to, on its own, jiu-jitsu is going to win everything. Because in a street fight, if a guy knows a little bit of jiu-jitsu, he's going to murder the other guy if he knows none. That's just a fact. Because it's the fundamentals of positional fighting, and there's no way to stop it really, unless you know some jiu-jitsu yourself. But yeah, it's as long as MMA exists, jiu-jitsu will exist as well, and I think that's one positive thing for the community.
Cool, man. I think the whole point of what we were talking about being in lockdown, and that you're involving your girls as part of that sort of part of your training, part of your regime. You're involving yoga in part of that. I think out of this lockdown, I think there's going to be more people that involve a lot more disciplines within their training. I know I will. I know you probably will, Jolie. Not just lifting heavy weight, or it's a lot. I feel a lot more flexible not lifting weight. I might not be as big in relation to aesthetics, but I definitely feel more mobile. I definitely feel my gymnastics is a lot better, etc., etc., etc. So I think it's good. I think it's going to be like any training regime. If you're doing something for the same thing for so long, there's no adaptation, there's no difference. If you're going to go back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that because you've been doing yoga for 6 to 8 weeks, there's certain positions that you're going to be getting into that you weren't able to get into before.
I feel like my hips feel like they're 20 years younger already. My hips, my hamstrings, my quad. Honestly, I can't quantify. All right, and I know not everybody's going to go out there and do an hour to an hour and a half's worth of yoga every day, and that's fine. But just if I ever miss a day for any reason, I feel terrible. And tomorrow I'm doing 3 hours. But I feel like a completely new man from all the yoga. I think it's been like, me, Chris. I've never taken a very holistic view of what health. I know health and fitness means different people to different things, but I've never taken a very holistic view of what fitness is. It's like, if I'm fit enough to do jiu-jitsu, I'm fit enough. I've never focused on being super strong or having ultra cardio or mobility or flexibility, but this has been one of the good things to come out of this, is to kind of step back and go, right, actually, what else?
But when you have a pure talent, which is obviously what you've got in that sport, that kind of sometimes over, it makes you kind of lose out on all the other things. I don't need that, So I think that you're only going to come out as a better fighter. I know that I'm going to be able to come out as a better, if I'm lifting weights, or mobility is going to be better, my sprinting is going to be better, whatever your discipline is. That I think if you're trying something completely different, yeah.
And I'm not sure, a strange side effect, I'm not sure if this is to do with the yoga or to do with the fact that I'm working from home or whatever. Obviously, losing jiu-jitsu is a big blow for me, and the day I can go back, I'll be there at the front of the line. But I remember feeling like stressed from work. Going into the office, coming out of the office, like work used to at times stress me out. And I'm not sure what it is, but I'm probably working harder than I ever have worked before in respect, like my professional career. And I don't feel any stress. I feel great about it.
You're sleeping better now? You got 3 hours extra in a day.
Yeah, and that's a gift. And just that extra time to spend. look, I'm trying to look for the positives that this thing's given us, because you can find, we can all make a long list of negatives. If we focus on them, we're all screwed. But
yeah, I mean, having a forced rest from something, as you say, you do BJA like every day. Having a forced rest from that, maybe it's giving your body time to heal a little bit. It's time to stretch, come back stronger.
But also just the time with the kids as well.
Yeah.
Like even training as much as jiu-jitsu as I used to. Obviously, I didn't used to see my kids as much as I used to. But the type of time that we're spending together, we're not just sitting and putting a movie on and just watching, Netflix or whatever. Like we're doing stuff together. Can you teach me how to do this? Can we start going on long bike rides with the dog? Can we go out to the park and do some sprints? And
it's awesome, mate. Yeah, it's so good fun.
Yeah, and these are the kind of things that you don't get to do on a Tuesday afternoon at lunchtime if you're working in Baker Street.
And it makes you reevaluate. That's what I've been doing. Suddenly, like, you've got some quality time and you're not stressed thinking, I'm going to need to get back to work, or you're too tired to do it. They go bike ride, you think, oh, God, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And all those things, they don't feel like a chore to me anymore. The moment I get a suggestion, like, Rad's like, you've been out of the house like 5 times today. She's like, I was like, yeah, but Roman wanted to go on a dog walk, then Anaya wanted to go on the bike ride, and then Roman wanted to go and do some sprints. And I just want to take them because I have the time. I have an extra 3 hours a day. I'm probably still working harder than I ever did. But
so is this the future? Is this the future for you?
I think so. I mean, I work in a building where there's 5,000 people. There's no way you socially distance 5,000 people in that building. So I don't know what
as well.
I think they've also. I reckon my company's also realised that actually we get more productivity out of people this way. And
you don't need a bigger building either.
Yeah, maybe they save a load of money on rent or whatever. And we've proved we can all work online from home, and still be productive. So yeah, I don't think those kind of buildings will, not just my company, I think in general, all those big companies are looking at themselves going, if we've proved that we can work online like this and still be productive, why do we need the overhead and why do we need the hassle?
Yeah.
Sam, what are you sort of looking at the moment? You reading any books? Are you following anyone?
Tons of stuff, man.
Who are you following yoga wise?
2 guys. So there's a guy called Rodney Yee. You can find clips of him on YouTube, but if you want to get any of his real workouts, you need to subscribe to this channel. But Rodney Yee, him specifically because he's the one who started. I found this yoga DVD and I started it, and then I kept going, and then I kind of searched him. And also there's a great website called Yoga for BJJ, run by a BJJ black belt who's also a yoga teacher, and his program's really good because it starts with like yoga for rocks, literally people who can't, and it kind of builds up in intensity. So those are the yoga things that I'm following. In terms of I'm trying not to read too much into events, trying to stay away from politics and who's saying what and who's doing what. But I downloaded the first fiction book that I will have been listening to in forever. I tend to read all of the usual stuff. Big fan of Malcolm Gladwell. I think he's amazing. I've read and listened to everything that he's ever done. But I downloaded my first fiction book for a long time. I'm listening to Stephen King's The Stand.
Nice, mate. It takes you out of every other, everything else that you're doing. Good.
That is kind of appropriate, but I try to not watch too much TV and movies and stuff, unless I'm doing something with the kids. I prefer to listen to audiobooks. I love podcasts as well. There's so much great content out there on podcasts. You could live 1,000 lifetimes and still not listen to it all.
Yeah, totally. Look, Sandeep, I appreciate your time tonight. John, is there anything else you want to kind of ask or go for?
No, it's been great.
Sandeep, I appreciate it. Following you on YouTube, what was it called again?
Homeschool BJJ.
Homeschool BJJ. And anything else? Any other following on?
Stay safe, stay active, people. Look for the positives in this thing because trust me, they are there.
Well, I think you've definitely converted me. I'm definitely coming down. I definitely need to do something like that.
You'd be so welcome, mate. You'd be made for
it. I'm sure I will. All the training sessions I put you through, I'm sure you'll be giving it back to me.
Yeah. Have some of this. Yeah.
You're in my world now. Mate, I appreciate your time. Be good, stay safe.
Take care.
Cheers, Charlie.